Okay, well, welcome back, everybody, to the Triple Doink podcast. After 3 long weeks, well, not 3 entire weeks, because we had that one week with the whole where we recapped Thursday night, right? Yeah, that was fun. Um, anyway,
You're so dead.
I know I
You're
my
so.
voice
This
is
is.
kind of my voice is kind of dead today.
Oh,
It's not.
it's your voice. All right. It
It is,
sounds
yeah.
like you're just welcoming death, and you're just like, oh, you sound like a Jags fan, and I sound like the Packers fan. Let's just say that. You know.
Well, thank you for that. Um, yeah, my voice is a little bit dead, so I'm gonna struggle through this. But anyway, I don't. It was a 3 week long thing, so I don't know. Take your pick.
Take your
I don't
pick.
know. I don't know who you are and who I am, but that's Bryce and I'm Ryan.
I am the George Kittle to your Jimmy Garoppolo because you can't win without me.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. So, um, here's the deal, guys. By guys, I mean no one. Um,
You're so down on yourself. Come on.
um, so it's been 3 weeks since we've done this, which means that we have a lot to talk about. So rather than going game by game, we're just going to go team by team, which is why our thumbnail is a nearly alphabetical
Yeah.
ordering of all the team logos. Um,
Nah, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans both now identify as Caesar, so
mhm,
it works.
yeah. Okay, so let's let's just dive right in. Let's get into the first team, which we're going to talk about, and we're just going by our spreadsheet order. So the first team we'll talk about is the Cincinnati Bengals. Um, so, of course, the last time we recorded was after week 7. So the last 3 weeks for the Bengals, they lost to the Rams in London, then they had their bye, and then they lost to the Ravens at home. And it's worth noting that in between those games, they benched Andy Dalton.
That's
So
about
it's
all the things that are worth noting about the
yeah,
Cincinnati. Yeah,
pretty much they look like an 0-16 team at this point.
they look. Yeah, they
Um,
always. I think every single week they looked worse than the Miami Dolphins.
well,
Because
the
I
first
I
few weeks, the
I
first
was
few weeks they looked better than the Dolphins, only because the Dolphins were historically bad.
and they
But
also were playing some of the best teams in the league. Remember, they
true,
had to play the Ravens and they had to play the Dolphins in those two. I mean, Whoa, the
yeah, the
Patriots.
yeah, and the Cowboys as well.
So like those are all in playoff contention teams, and
Yeah,
I think the
so
Bengals had to play the Steelers, and they didn't look good against a Mason Rudolph. Like I think it was his first start. Steelers.
yeah, that was week 4. So yeah, pretty early on they played the Steelers.
That was the Monday night game.
Right. So yeah, the Bengals look like a terrible team. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Zach Taylor, their head coach, and of course, I have a prediction relating to that.
Where there'll only be which division has no, I think that was the NFC East that I'm thinking of. Your
Well, right,
prediction.
the NFC East, I had the prediction that 3 coaches get fired, which kind of
We should talk
seems.
about that later because I think that seems really likely. Your
We'll talk about that later. No, the two predictions tied to this team though are um, the Bengals will have at least 3 starting quarterbacks this season, so that's definitely in play with Dalton getting benched. Um, and the other one is that Matt LaFleur will outlast all the other newly hired head coaches, and Zach Taylor being one of them with the
Zach
Bengals.
Taylor, like just looking at him, he looks like a brat, doesn't he?
Mm,
I don't really. That's all I have to comment on him because to be fair to him, his defense assembled is ungodly bad, and everyone knew it was going to be really bad. And they don't have an
yeah,
O line. And if you
right.
have nothing on defense and no O line, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is. It really doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, yeah, he threw like like okay. I think Andy Dalton's fine. He's
Well,
not.
he's the Dalton scale.
He
We
really like. But actually, I didn't think it was as real as it was until you actually sit down and watch a whole game of Andy Dalton football, and you're like, holy, how do you make
yeah,
football boring?
he doesn't it, he plays to the talent level around him. If he has good pieces around him, you'll have a good offense. If he doesn't, you'll have a bad
I don't
offense.
even think he needs good pieces around him. He has at air like Eckerson, and he's able to like just make him into like a wide receiver. Yeah, Alec Erickson. Why did I say Eckerson?
I don't know. I was just gonna let it go though.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the other interesting note about the Bengals is that Andy Dalton is the first quarterback in NFL history to start a season both 8-0 and 0-8 in his career. Um, so yeah, that's the Dalton scale for you. Um, so yeah, shall we move on? Any more thoughts on the Bengals?
No, not really. I have
Okay.
zero more thoughts.
Well, let's move on to the Cleveland Browns then. So week 8 they lost to the Patriots in an ugly loss. Week 9 they lost to the Broncos in an ugly loss. And week 10 they beat the Bills when the Bills missed a field goal that would have sent it to overtime. So yeah, I mean, I kind of expected the Patriots to beat the Browns. That was pretty clear. Um, I really, ATN around the NFL, they talked about the Broncos game being a dirt nap game for the Browns, meaning if they lose that game, they're done basically. But it's funny because after they beat the Bills and several other AFC teams lost, they're like right back in the wild card race because the bottom of the AFC is so weak. Um,
I think it's more to do with the fact that the sixth seed in the AFC is almost definitely gonna be a 9-7 team.
mhm. Right,
And
that's what I
when
mean.
you have a division of football like the AFC North, where the Browns can beat the best team in it, which is the Ravens, they've already done it, right? They beat
Hmm.
when you have a win against that, and you get to play the Bengals twice, and you get to play the Steelers twice. The Steelers, who people are like really high on right now, and I'm still like, all right,
Yeah, I'm not.
you have their defense is really good. I can agree with that. Like I think their defense will just win them games a lot of the time.
Hmm.
But I never thought the Rams this season looked like anything. Um, so I guess we can talk about the Steelers and the Browns in this one take. Is that's if that's fine with you?
Well, we'll get to the Steelers in a minute.
Well, I mean they're right next to each other and they are very
But just
similar right now. But for the, I guess sake, sure.
yeah, just talking about the Browns for now though. And of course they play the Steelers tonight. So that'll be a big game for them. But I the approach that I kind of wanted to take to this was like how do we feel differently about the Browns or whatever team we're talking about both after these 3 weeks that we haven't recorded and from the beginning of the season. And obviously from the beginning of the season they're a huge disappointment. We expected them to be good, and they're just not. And these last 3 weeks have really done very little to change that because in my mind they they lost a game they should have lost to the Patriots. They lost a game they probably should have won against the Broncos, and they won a game that they probably should have lost to the Bills. Um, so yeah, I don't I don't know. Do you have any other takes on that on the Browns, or should we move on?
No, I don't have any other takes on the Browns other than uh people gotta realize like the ounce of doubt that everyone had about the Browns was proven right, which is their
Hmm.
offensive line. Like it proves the most important positions in football. This whole season has been like eye-opening to me because all it's proven to me is that the O-line is the second most important part of football.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's not even close. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
football is 30% quarterback, 30% O-line, 30% D-line, and then 10% everyone else. Like, it's
Yeah,
unbelievably, like, I think you could call it like 70 overall, like, players playing in all your skill positions. And then you have like the best quarterback in football and the best O line, and you would win 10 games. Like it,
I'm gonna amend that though. It's it's 30% quarterback, 30% O line, 30% D line, 2% kickers and punters, 8% everyone else.
yeah, I could actually agree with that. I think kickers and punters are actually like they're a bigger piece. I think getting the best kicker in football is better than getting the best wide receiver in football.
Yeah. Did
I
you have you seen the Dorktown episode about the 2010 Chargers?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have.
there you go.
There
There
you
you go.
go. They had the best offense, the best defense, and the worst special teams, and they didn't make the playoffs. Not only the
Yep.
best offense and defense, the historically two of the best offenses and defenses.
Yep. Um and the Packers won the Super Bowl that year. um so anyway, moving on from
Worst year
the
of the
Cleveland Browns to a team that has surprised us in the other direction. We expected them to be average, and they look very good, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. So they were on bye week 8, and then they came back strong on Sunday Night Football and beat the Patriots. Um, Huge win for them. And then, of course, last week they blew out the Bengals, um, which was totally expected. Um, but that win against the Patriots was a statement win. And we'll talk about it more, I think, when we talk about the Patriots. But this was huge for the Ravens. They're now only one game behind the Patriots. And the Patriots, of course, I don't know that they're going to lose another game. They could very easily finish 15-1. But if they do lose, the Ravens will hold the tiebreak over them, which is huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with the Chiefs losing a couple games in there, it looks like the Ravens and Patriots are pretty much locked into the top 2 seeds in the AFC. So there's that to consider also. Um, so well, and I guess the Texans have an outside shot at getting in there too, but
The bye?
Hmm?
The bye, you're saying?
Yeah, for the bye in the AFC.
I don't think it's an
Um,
outside shot for the Texans. They're clearly the best team in the South, as much as I hate to admit it.
well, I mean yes, but they're
They're the only
well, I mean they
team
do
who has
play.
they're the only team who knows every single week 100% who's going to be their quarterback. And
Yeah.
if you're telling me Ryan Tannehill is the second most secure quarterback position in your division, holy shit.
Well, we'll talk about them more when we get to that division, but
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, the Texans do play the Patriots yet and the Ravens. So they're playing the Ravens this week. So they could, if they win both of those games, obviously they're in great position, but I don't think that'll happen. Um so um yeah, the Ravens Texans game this week, by the way, is the one that I'm most looking forward to. I think that's going to be a huge game, and it, I want to amend something that I had said on an. Let me bring up my document here where I wrote it down.
You said earlier episode, by the way. I know you lagged out a little bit, but I could make out what you said.
Yes, something I brought up on an earlier episode, and unfortunately my Ethernet cable got knocked out. There we go. Now it's back in. Okay,
There we go.
directly connected. So we've talked a lot about tiers of wide receivers, but of course we also have tiers of quarterbacks. And this entering this year, this was my S tier of quarterbacks: Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Andrew Luck, who then retired. So he's out. And then I had said Drew Brees if he gets back to being Drew Brees, and Cam Newton if he gets back to being Cam Newton. And it looks like neither of those players is back to their elite level, to their highest level, though Drew Brees is still doing fine. And
It's really
now
true.
at this point in the season, and it was actually after that Raiders game, which we'll talk about, I am adding Deshaun Watson to that S tier. And after that Patriots game, I am adding Lamar Jackson to that tier.
I wouldn't say. Okay. I'm gonna talk about the Ravens now. The Ravens are one of the best system teams in the league, and
Absolutely,
they
yes.
are. And systems. Anyone who says a system is bad is lying to you.
Hmm.
Anyone who tells you that, oh, the system can be found out, there are counters to it, they can be exploited, and all that, has no idea what they're talking about.
Hmm.
Because yes, all those things are true, because of course, but what a system provides a team is like game plan, day, like every single week, so that your floor is still incredibly high
Hmm.
as a team. And when your system revolves around the three most important positions, O line, quarterback, and defense, and you just maximize the potential of those positions, you're going to have a fantastic team. And lo and behold, their running schemes are incredible. Like they understand how to draft tight end better than any team in the league. They have
Hmm.
like three tight ends and a fullback that acts kind of like a tight end that just lines up in the backfield. And they even Doyle lines up in the backfield a lot. It's insane. You'll have these incredible blocking schemes where you have two people who just ignore one guy because it's a zone read. So you basically have your entire team ignore one guy because the quarterback's just looking at where he's biting, and so that's technically I would say the quarterback is blocking him, in a
Hmm.
zone, but then you'll have two tight ends run past him and just block the linebackers before anything happens, and you just get these incredible like 20-yard runs by Mark Ingram or Lamar Jackson or Robert Griffin the third,
Yeah.
like Gus Edwards. You keep going down the list. You have like there are a few teams that utilize fullback incredibly well. One of them's the Packers, one of them's the Ravens. Like it's gonna be a great team to watch for the next 5-10 years. Like
Yeah.
because this is where people need to understand that, like, yes, part of this is coaching and game plan and stuff, but like the biggest part about that makes it coaching is that everyone is on the same page almost every play. And even during the Patriots game, there was this one moment, right, where a tight end, everyone knows the play, but a tight end misplays where he goes over his guy instead of going under so he doesn't get a rub off on a defender, and the defender just breaks the play for Lamar Jackson. And instead of like doing it, it's that joystick play against the
Hmm.
Patriots at the goal line. He just runs the other way and just scores a touchdown out of nowhere. Or he gets really close, I think.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
like
he is the best. He's the best running quarterback I think we've ever seen, and
Michael
he
Vick
can
didn't
throw
have a
too.
team. Michael Vick did not have a team designed for a running quarterback around him. That's what made Michael Vick special. Remember that. Remember
That's true.
Michael Vick did that in a scheme that was basically air raid,
That's true.
and he had no run blockers for his O line. That's what made Michael Vick unbelievably special. If you go back and watch Michael Vick, the things he did were with a team that was not built for a quarterback like him, and he still did it anyway. He never had what
That's
Lamar Jackson
true.
has right now. Lamar Jackson is gonna go down as the best, but people got that's just because recency bias will always be a thing, and they're both the best too. Like I'm not gonna pick one
You
over the
make
other.
Yeah, you make some good points, but I would also point out that Michael Vick did struggle with accuracy. Like he
So
had
does
a
Lamar
really
Jackson.
pretty he had a really pretty deep ball, and of course he was always a threat to run, but Lamar Jackson has made some incredible throws this season.
Yeah.
Not all just downfield, but in the short and intermediate stuff too.
Well,
He
that's
is
because
proving to be a legitimate passer, which we
again,
didn't see from him last year.
no, that's all. He's always been good at those throws. He's always been good at those flats. He throws horizontally better than almost any quarterback in the league, and we knew this coming in out of college that he was good at this. And John
Hmm.
Harbaugh knows this. John Harbaugh is the guy making these incredible like rub concepts on the side where you have your fullback going in a flat and 3 wide receivers blocking, and then you just throw it to your fullback, and he gets it to the outside faster than any quarterback in the most perfect pockets I've seen from a quarter. It's so insane sometimes. And also when you're playing against the Patriots and you read the zero blitz, you know exactly where you need to throw the ball even before the
Hmm.
play starts. It's really zero blitz is one of those things that will only catch people who get nerves off guard. And that's why it works really well again when you are the Patriots playing a team that isn't the Patriots because again and again. Teams, I don't know why this is a thing in the highest level, but people play scared against the Patriots. Like all the time, right? You know what
Yeah,
I
they
mean?
do.
When I say like they actually are afraid. Like
Hmm.
he if you don't play afraid against the Patriots, you run over them. Like the Eagles did it in the Super Bowl, the Ravens just did it last week, and once pressure starts building and accumulating in playoff games, that's when like you'll see even the Ravens like start like tensing up and like playing scared. And
Yeah.
like you get all these conservative play calls and nothing is working anymore and you instead of going for it on how many fourth downs did like the Ravens go for it on like 4, right? And
Yeah,
I
well
think they
that's
like
that's
that's the
something
type
that
of
I
stuff
don't
you
think
need to do.
that's something that I don't think is going to change come playoff time because
I
John
hope it
Harbaugh
doesn't.
is definitely into the analytics side of things and is going for it a lot more than any other coach right now, which I like. I like the aggressiveness. Um, but anyway, that's enough, I think, on the Ravens for now. However, it is worth pointing out they do have the Texans this week, then they are at Rams, and then versus 49ers. So potentially a tough schedule for them. I think they'll handle the Rams, but the Texans and 49ers games are big for them. So moving on from the Ravens, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they beat the Dolphins on Monday Night Football in Week 8, a game where they were down for a while. Then they beat the Colts at home and beat the Rams at home. Two surprising results. And Yeah, I mean they don't have a quarterback right now. I don't believe in Mason Rudolph at all, but they have quite a defense. And this is maybe one of the bigger surprises of the season is how well the Steelers defense has played, especially since they acquired Minka Fitzpatrick.
Uh, I think it's just the defense is really good.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like this team has, I think, probably the. I don't know if I would. I mean, the only other defense that I would put above them is this 49ers.
Mm.
Like, really, there isn't a defense in the league right now that's playing better.
The Patriots are still pretty good.
No, no. The Patriots are a team that when you, strength, I value strength of competition a lot, and they're also a team that's not the best up front when it comes to their defense, and I think that's gonna bite them as the season keeps going. I actually think that like players like T.J. Watt, oh god, like you
Yeah,
have
TJ
you
Watt
have
is
so
legit.
many people disrupting the pocket, and then you have players like Minka Fitzpatrick, like that will just catch these like uh off kilter throws that are created from the the battle that was won up front. I mean,
Hmm.
the Steelers. will make the playoffs. I think it's
Yeah, they
really
could
likely
they
the
could
Steelers
definitely.
just make the playoffs because they're so much of a terror up front, and I don't know how much they're gonna make it past that though. I would like to see a team like the Raiders or Browns make it, obviously, but like, don't
Mhm.
think it's gonna happen. Everyone's kind of on the Raiders side right now. I found, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, maybe it won't because it might be a meaningless game. But they play the Ravens again in Week 17,
Holy
and
wait, I hold up. We're gonna get. Never mind. You keep talking. I'll bring this up later.
okay.
I'm.
But I would like to see what happens to that Steelers defensive front against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offensive line. Um, but like I said, it might end up being a meaningless game because it's the final week of the season. Um, or it might end up being a very meaningful game. Never know. So anyway, that's all I really have on the Steelers. Let's move on to the Colts, who are next. So the Colts in Week 8 beat the Broncos in a game that we'll talk about more when we get to the Broncos. Then they lost to the Steelers in Heinz Field on a Vinatieri missed kick, I do believe. And then last week they lost to the Dolphins in a very, very bad game, an embarrassing loss for the Colts. Um, and obviously, the most important factor here is that they're now playing without Jake Brisket and without T.Y. Hilton, and that is drastically hurt their offense.
I think that Brian Hoyer proved that he's not that good of a quarterback.
Yeah, we knew that though.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
he's a decent backup, but he's not he's not a good quarterback. We've
I
known that since his days with the Texans.
would I call him a decent quarterback? I don't think so. He's not. I mean, he's their third string. I mean, he was gonna technically be their third string, right? So like,
Yeah, I mean
it's
that's
really
true.
hard to like say anything about this front because their defense has a lot of components there, and they also again very strong up front. Their O line was a little banged up, and the T.Y. Hilton wasn't in, so it was very hard to get the ball anywhere. But I mean, they just are a team that desperately needs a bye week, and I don't know when they're gonna get it.
Well, I mean they already had their bye in
Yeah,
week 6, so
that's probably
yeah.
yeah.
Their next bye, I mean, they just had the Dolphins game, which they lost. Um, they don't have any easy games. Their remaining schedule is Jaguars, Texans, Titans, all division games. Then Buccaneers, Saints, Panthers, and then Jaguars again to finish the season. So they um they don't have an easy game remaining. Um, so yeah, the Colts. I mean, they were fun, but they're you know, I feel like they're kind of done now with the injuries that they've had. Um, so moving
Yeah,
on to
I don't know if the Colts are
oh
done, but it's hard to like.
yeah, they might
Mm,
not be done because like we mentioned, the bottom of the AFC is wide open. They could still sneak into the wild card. Um, but yeah, and in fact they could even still catch the Texans and win the division if the Texans have a collapse. But um, yeah, I feel like they're done, and that's just me. Their ceiling at this point is losing in the first round of the playoffs. So
we'll see.
yeah, we'll see what
It's hard
happens.
to say anything about a banged up team other than oh they're banged up.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so let's move on to the Jaguars. So week 8, they beat the Jets. Then
Week 9 never happened.
week 9, they got blown
We
out
this
in
is
London.
this didn't happen. It's a lie. This
Yeah.
man is lying to you through his teeth. Nothing ever happened in Tiananmen Square, all right? And nothing ever happened in London on
Yeah.
uh November 2nd, 2019.
Yeah. The Texans blew out the Jaguars, and that was an ugly game. And then the Jaguars had their bye last week, and it appears that they are turning back to Nick Foles now, which to me makes sense. But I'll let you talk about your team.
Nick Foles is not going to survive on a team like the Jaguars, who isn't built around a quarterback that isn't mobile. At the end of the day, you really need an O line for a pocket passer, right? And we have Brandon Linder and everyone else who time and time again missed assignments, didn't communicate, and were just outmatched by every opponent this season, which made it so Minshew looked even better than he probably should have because he was allowed to move outside the pocket because he was required to. Like if he didn't move out of the pocket, he would have been killed as a rookie. Now, I think that it's actually really likely that we see Minshew back in 2-3 weeks because if Nick Foles, you see, he has Chark, which is great for him because so I'm sure he's gonna make a lot of good downfield throws, but he might take 5-6 sacks a game. Like he is not set up to succeed. I want him to, obviously, and I really do want my team to win, but the more I think about how the Jaguars are right now, the more I'm like, for everyone's safety, like, please put Minshew back in. Like, he's one of the only quarterbacks right now that I can trust against with our O line. It's the only position that we need the draft for. It's the only position we need the draft for.
Mm.
It is like next season. If we spent every draft pick on offensive linemen, I would think that was a one draft. We don't need a tight end as much as we need an O line.
Yeah. I will say this about the Jaguars. So first of all, I think going back to Foles at this point is the right choice, and it's because you paid him and you want to see if he's
that's not an argument. I refuse to
well.
believe that's an argument. I don't
Okay,
think
but
anyone
just hear
actually
me out.
views that.
Hear me out. You paid him, and you want to see how he works with this team, and you only really saw it for a couple of drives, and including a beautiful touchdown pass on the throw he got injured on in that week 1 game, and you want to see how he does. And if he fails, you go back to Minshew, who's already proven that he can do well with this offense.
You're
And of
always
course,
gonna go
there's
back to Minshew eventually, whether it's now or in 3 years. Though, like that's the
I
thing.
feel like that's true, but you want to
Because
see what you have with Nick Foles,
I mean,
because his ceiling is still higher than Minshew's ceiling. I mean, his Foles' ceiling for this year is a Super Bowl
okay,
win.
there.
We've seen that. We've
Oh
seen
no,
that.
his quarterback. Okay, I don't
We've
think his
seen down
this.
the stretch
No,
that
his
Nick Foles can
ceiling
be
is
great.
not a Super Bowl this year. His ceiling is maybe the playoffs.
But
You can't
we've
say
seen
that
what
it's a
Nick
Super Bowl
Foles
because
did.
he's won a Super Bowl before. Is Eli Manning's ceiling a Super Bowl this year? No,
He's a
that's
different
complete
player.
bullshit. You
He's a
can't.
different player.
Eh,
This is the other part of my point, though, Bryce. Their remaining schedule for the season, they have at Colts,
That's
at
hard.
Titans, 2 division
Those are really
games.
hard.
But then if you get through that, you have versus Buccaneers, versus Chargers, at Raiders, at Falcons, and then versus Colts to close the season. All winnable games.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like this team, if they get a couple of breaks to go their way, they're 4-5 right now. They could finish this season 11-5, 10-6, and they could get into the playoffs.
yeah,
And
but I mean,
once Nick Foles is in the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen.
I think you do. I think that it's way more calculated when you're on a team with the best O line I've
I think
seen
I'm
in a
lagging a
long.
bit.
Hello, hello, hello. Type something. Type something.
Yep, I did. We're back.
All right, there we go. Okay,
Okay.
but like you, I think are putting too much weight on what is quote unquote a miracle run for the Eagles. At the end of the day, if you look back in hindsight, they This is going to be the theme of this entire podcast for the today. They had an O-line, the best O-line in football, the best O-line of the decade. They had.
Look, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not
He's a
saying the
pocket
Jags are going to.
passer. You're
I'm not saying the
basically
Jags are going to
asking
go on a
him,
run.
but you're asking him to. You're saying that we don't know if he's going to be a pocket passer or not, but we do know that, and there's no way that he goes into the playoffs and does anything with an O-line like Jacksonville's. There's
But
no way. You can't tell me.
In the right circumstance,
But it's not the right circumstance.
But you didn't hear the end of my sentence. In the right circumstance, a good quarterback can compensate for a subpar offensive line, and even just an experienced veteran quarterback, he can potentially read blitzes better than a rookie and set up his protections better. And I mean, don't you want to see what you have with this guy?
I do. I said I do want to see what we have. I guess like I would like to, but I have no faith that he's gonna do well, and I'm sure he has a lot of that. Right? He is the best person to like hype up a game if the Jaguars are gonna do well. But he is setting up everyone for disappointment because it's far more likely he crashes and burns than he does well. It's far more likely right now, and
yeah, that's very
everyone
true.
is like just getting infatuated with the words he says in interviews and stuff. And I just hope I can bring everyone's on cloud nine right now because he's hyping. He has a way with words that most people don't. He's a very charismatic guy. He can do interviews like no other quarterback in the league. Whatever, right? It's like, oh, I had faith. Man, I really want to root for my team in the offseason. But when I was hurt, I had some self-reflection, all that bullshit, whatever. Like yeah, okay, you can talk good to the media, and that's great until you play on field and throw 3 picks and get hurt. Like that, if anything bad happens now, it's just gonna be the most disappointing thing in the world.
Yeah.
He's set up to fail.
I agree with you. I mean, he's
not put in a position to succeed because Doug
honestly
Marrone doesn't know how to build a team.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. I think the Jaguars
did you
do
hear
have.
what he said? This pissed me off a lot. He actually had the audacity in an interview to say that I hope Nick Foles can fix our redstone stripes. He thinks that it's the quarterback. He just threw his quarterbacks under the bus instead of blaming his own play calling. Instead of this motherfucker blames his quarterbacks for the redstone struggles and not the play calling. Like fuck him. Fuck off. I do
think the Jaguars need to make some changes in their coaching staff and also in the front office.
Front office has been doing fine though. They Ramsey had his problems, whatever, right? But you look at the last few drafts and the trades we've had, we got rid of Dante Fowler and Jalen Ramsey, and they have done almost nothing for the Rams, right? They have been really underwhelming, right?
Dante Fowler, that I'm calling bullshit on that. Dante Fowler was huge in that Super Bowl run last year.
I think that Aaron Donald was really good, and I thought that he was.
I mean, Aaron Donald, of course.
I think that it was the people around Dante Fowler. I think Dante Fowler came in to be the secondary to Aaron Donald, and I think other players on that line were. But anyway, I think that if you look, we got.
He made a huge impact on that defense.
But we got Josh Allen, Calais Campbell, Ngakwe. We have so much depth on that anyway at this point.
Yeah.
That if we actually paid him, we would be in a worse position right now. We would. The only reason why, the worst part was Telvin Smith having a year of reflection, I guess.
Yeah.
But other than that, we have 2 cornerbacks who can start fine. We don't get beat on the side even without Jalen Ramsey. Boye is a competent cornerback, number 1. I actually don't mind getting rid of Ramsey the more I think about it, because I'd rather pay people. I think the front office knows where to pay people, actually, and I really, really am. The more I think about the Ramsey trade, I'm like, thank God almost right now. I think we need to have better safeties but I don't even think we need it. I think that it would be just more a luxury at this point. I think all we need is just a better O-line. And they tried paying for a better O-line. They paid Cam Robinson a lot. They drafted him in the second round. They got a rookie on the other side of the ball, on the other side of the O-line. They just haven't been good at drafting talent for them. So I think they just need a new scouts in that department, and then they would be fine.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
that's
and I
it.
mean, to be fair, good offensive linemen
They
are
got
very
two
hard to come
quarterbacks
by.
too.
Yeah, they did.
They found Chark.
Yeah.
Like it's just been tight end and O-line. Those are the only positions that they haven't done too well in. But we
Well, and
have
I mean,
one of the
James O'Shaughnessy actually looked pretty good prior to his injury.
even then
So,
but he hasn't stayed healthy, to be fair. And Josh
well, of
Oliver is
course.
still in his rookie year, and tight ends usually don't do anything in their rookie year. So maybe we have
But yeah,
two tight ends. Maybe we do. But
it's really just the offensive line, and offensive linemen are very hard to come by. And the Jaguars are certainly not the only
I
team
think
that
there
has
is
struggled
one
to find
team
offensive
that's
linemen.
about to have a little bit of a contract struggle, or like with their O-line. I think that's the Dallas Cowboys come off season, right? Am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that.
Because I think that Zach Martin goes on the market.
Yeah, he'll get paid for sure.
And if we get rid of Nick Foles, have a lot of cap space, and then bring in Zach Martin, that's a Super Bowl team.
Well, you're not going to be able to dump all of that cap.
But even just a little bit, and just we have a lot of extra cap. We have a lot of room to work with, actually, because if you actually think about the players we're paying right now, like, remember, we don't have Ramsey anymore. We didn't pay him. He was on a rookie contract anyway. A lot of these players that we're paying Miles Jack, I think. We're paying Campbell. We're paying Nick Foles. That's about it. Those are the three players. Everyone else is either on rookie contracts or just pieces that are not like. I think Brandon Linder's the other guy that we're paying a lot, and good, because he's the one good part about that O-line.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on from the Jaguars for now, and let's talk about the Texans.
The best team in the division. Deshaun Watson's MVP candidate.
Yeah, so Week 8 was that game against the Raiders, and that was the game where I decided that Deshaun Watson was in that S tier, and we'll talk about that game in a minute. Then, of course, they went and blew out the Jaguars in London, and then had their bye after the London game. So we already... I mean, I don't think we need to talk anymore about that London game. The Raiders game, though, I mean, the play where he gets kicked in the face, adjusts his face mask, and then throws a touchdown. I mean, that was one of the most incredible plays I've ever seen any quarterback make. And then the fact that with his eye being all swollen and him not being able to see out of one eye, he still finished out the game and made several huge plays to put the game away on that final drive. I mean, Deshaun Watson is a special player. Like, the whole thing, and I love bringing this up because I'm a Packer fan, but the Bears took Mitch Trubisky over Watson and Mahomes. And at first, I thought the Bears and Texans made the wrong choice not taking Patrick Mahomes. And now I don't think the Texans made the wrong choice necessarily. I think that Mahomes and Watson are both special.
It's basically like San Diego made the mistake of having Phillip Rivers instead of Drew Brees. It's like, well, did they really? Yeah.
No, they're both good.
No, the real mistake was that they didn't have Eli Manning. They could have gotten him.
The real mistake is they could have had Ben Roethlisberger. But anyway, I mean, Deshaun Watson's a special player. Like I said, he's in my S tier, and Lamar Jackson is too. I like watching him play. I know you don't like the Texans, but I like watching them. They're fun. Also worth noting, in that Raiders game, J.J. Watt got hurt. He's done for the year, and that's a huge blow to their defense. That probably limits their potential. It sucks because I want to root for the Texans to be that team that upsets the Patriots, but I think with J.J. Watt not playing, it's going to be a lot harder. Um, you got to get pressure on Tom Brady somehow, and I don't think they can do it. We'll see, I guess, in a couple weeks when they play. But yeah, any other thoughts on the Texans?
I hate that they're good.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so moving on to the Tennessee Titans.
I will say Laramie Tunsil is the best part of the best thing
Mm,
that could have happened to them.
yeah, definitely. Um, but moving on to the Titans. So, uh, let's see here. They beat the Buccaneers in a game that the officials helped them out. Um, they lost to the Panthers, and then they upset the Chiefs last week. Um, and they currently sit at 5-5, and this is exactly what I expected from the Titans. They will sometimes show you something, and you think, "Oh, they're a good team," um, and then other weeks they just fall flat on their faces, collectively as a group. And yeah, that's basically this team. I feel like they're destined to always finish with 6 to 10 wins, never more, never less.
Yeah, I hate the mayonnaise eaters. Why could they? Why do they have to? Why do the Chiefs have to fuck up and have them win? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it was a blocked kick at the end that ended the game, you know.
Fucking. Why did they have to mess up? I'm like, come on. You had one job. You had one job.
Mhm.
Not let Ryan Tannehill's Tennessee Titans beat you at home. What you do? I hate the Chiefs because they made the Titans win. Like, fuck you, Chiefs. It's all your
I mean
fault.
that seems like a strong reason to suddenly hate the Chiefs.
You know what? Fuck it. I hate the Chiefs. They beat us, and then they lose to the Titans. It's the worst sin imaginable. Maybe genocide, but
Yeah, I mean, who's worse really if you think about it? Hitler or Andy Reid?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes does put ketchup on his steak.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty unforgivable. But any other thoughts on the Titans? I mean, I don't care about the Titans. They're not going anywhere. They're another team that could sneak into the playoffs, but their ceiling again is losing in the playoffs.
Yep. Yup.
All
The
right,
Texans or the Titans? You mean Titans? Yeah. I was like,
the Titans. Yeah.
I had a big brain fart there. Yeah. Titans. Yeah. I hate them. Go away.
All right. So moving on then to the Bills. So the Bills, in Week 8, they went into the week at 5-1, and they had a very disappointing loss to the Eagles. Then they had kind of a get right game against the Racists, but it still wasn't a good game for them. Um, but they won it, and then they lost a disappointing game to the Browns. And the Bills are a team that definitely within the last 3 weeks they've changed my opinion of them in a negative way. Um, I thought they were a contender in the AFC because, prior to that Eagles game, they had one loss, and it was to the Patriots in a game where their quarterback got knocked out. And, I was thinking maybe this defense is good enough to kind of carry this team and they could go on a run. But then they got exposed against the Eagles. Their run defense looked really bad in that game. And, they've lost 2 out of their last 3. They've got the Dolphins next, then the Broncos. So maybe they could stack a couple wins there. But I mean, they're still probably a playoff team, but they're not going to get through the elite teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest disappointment so far has been their run defense. You're right. Like it's very sad to see, actually. Like super like. I really wanted them to be good. You know.
Yeah, I did too.
I wanted them. I thought that they could be. I thought that if their defense maintained the form they're at, but I think it just proved that like Sony Michel sucks. Like all the run teams that they played early in the season, they don't. Le'Veon Bell isn't set up for the Jets, right? Like you're looking back, like wow, they really didn't play anyone until.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on from the Bills, I guess.
I
Let's
want them to
talk
be
about the
good.
Dolphins, the surging Dolphins.
Fitzmagic is back.
Yeah, so week 8 on Monday Night Football, they looked frisky against the Steelers, a game they ultimately lost, but they had a lead in there for a while, and they looked like honestly the better team throughout a lot of that game. And then they beat the Jets in week 9 to get their first win, and then they beat the Colts last week. And this Dolphins team, they are not the terrible team that started the year. Ryan Fitzpatrick gives them a much better chance than Josh Rosen ever did. And they are, I mean, I feel like they are not a bad team anymore. They're a bad team, but they're not a bad team, if you know what I'm saying.
I believe that their defense is a lot better than we thought. That's the big thing I took away. I mean, not only, there's their defense, right? And that's the big thing I think that is surprising is that their run defense is actually really good. Yeah. They held Marlon Mack to how many yards? Like 30 in the first half or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not
They
sure.
held a pretty good run team in the Colts.
Mm,
Practically nothing. I
mm.
mean, Fitzmagic is on. Goodbye, top 5 pick. Hello.
Yeah. Well, they still may end up in the top 5,
They
but
probably do. They probably do.
but the bad news for the Dolphins in the draft is that they're surging and the Steelers are surging. So you're right; they could end up without a top 5 pick. But with those 2 first round picks, they probably have plenty of ammo to get back into the top 5 if they need to. Um. So yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, that's all I really have to say for now about the Dolphins. Credit to their coaching staff, though. I think Brian Flores and his staff have done a pretty good job. Um, so anyway, let's move on and talk about the J-Men. No, the Jets.
The
The J-Men. Let's talk. Let's talk about the dumpster fire, the other dumpster fire in New York.
Oh
Um,
man, yeah.
so they lost to the Jaguars in embarrassing fashion. They lost to the Dolphins in embarrassing fashion, and they beat the Giants in embarrassing fashion. Um, a game that, I mean, clearly 2 terrible teams that nobody seemed to want to win. So yeah, the Jets are another huge disappointment this year. It's funny because, as you know, I have Le'Veon Bell in fantasy, and he's apparently been dealing with an illness this week. So he's missed some practice, and I just found it funny that somebody did specifically ask Adam Gase, "Is it mono?" And he was like, "No." So, so yeah, Le'Veon Bell does not have mono. But I just think it's funny that they asked that.
Yeah, if that's the most interesting thing about the Jets, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Moving on.
Yeah. Let's move to the Patriots.
I refuse to talk about the Jets. Basically, fuck that team.
yeah, there's nothing to talk
You
about.
made Le'Veon Bell look like an underwhelming running back.
Mm-hmm. So the Patriots, they beat the Browns and lost to the Ravens, and then they had their bye. And we've already talked about those games because we talked about the Browns and Ravens, but what I want to talk about with the Ravens game is I really think that this I mean ultimately Bill Belichick got outcoached in that game, which you don't see very often. And I feel like the Patriots are going to come back, and I don't think they're going to win, or I don't think they're going to lose, rather, another game this season. I honestly think because they've got at Eagles this week, then versus Cowboys, at Texans, versus Chiefs, at Bengals, versus Bills and Dolphins. So they've got the tough part of their schedule right now when they're extra motivated because of that loss. And I feel like they're just gonna I feel like they're just gonna win out and finish the season 15-1. And that's my prediction at this point, and you can't tell me I'm wrong.
All right. I think the biggest problem they will have again is they're weak in their defensive front. That is where they are weakest right now, aside from running back. I think. Uh, it's uh, they probably. I really need to look at their schedule before I make this point. Honestly, like I refuse to say anything until I look at the Patriots on their own. Their schedule for the rest of the season, please. Come on, NFL.com. Come on.
At
All right.
Eagles
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
Cowboys,
I'm
at
here.
Texans
I'm
versus
here.
Chiefs, at Bengals versus Bills
I'm
versus Dolphins.
I'm currently looking at it. Yes, thank you. So I think they lose 3 games.
Okay,
They,
where are their 3 losses?
I mean, three of the combination of Philadelphia, Dallas, Houston, Kansas City, and Buffalo. 3 of that
Hmm.
combination. That's it. That they will lose 3 of those games because I look at all those teams as possible. Like you just. I mean, with Carson Wentz, you are good enough, right? You are good enough to be. I'm fucking like sorry, I'm stuttering really hard and brain farting. Uh Again with Carson Wentz, like I think that he'll read zero blitz just fine, and I think a lot of their early wins just came off that one play design. It's really insane. Like there was so many like situations against Pittsburgh, Miami, and New York where it's just they're playing against trash quarterbacks and they just run zero blitz and they
Whoa, did
just.
you just call Ben Roethlisberger a trash quarterback?
I thought he got hurt in that game.
Nope, he got hurt in week 2.
I just called Ben Roethlisberger a trash quarterback. Anyway.
Fair enough.
What makes it funny is that you turn on and off your mic every time you like talk. I think because so I hear this like that where it's this like bump of your microphone and it's kind of like Roger that over and out. It reminds me of like every time you talk, it's like. I just needed to point that out. It was getting ridiculous.
Okay, I'll stop doing that.
No, you're fine. You don't need to turn off your mic though. Yeah. Um. But yeah, like Dak Prescott is a legitimate quarterback who, if he actually plays well down the stretch and beats teams like New England, like you could be talking about MVP talks. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. Keep in mind, I don't think, but he is on the cusp.
I don't know. I don't
He
believe
needs
in
a few
Dak the
more
way
good
you
teams.
do.
I don't believe in him. I don't believe in the Dallas Cowboys, but I do believe in Dakota Prescott, Skip Bayless as quarterback. Woo!
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I hate the Cowboys.
Daniel Jones, he played against Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, Luke Falk, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen. Like, the best quarterback I've named so far is Josh Allen. The best
Ben
performing quarterback was Sam
Roethlisberger.
Darnold.
Kidding.
You have Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. The best quarterback of all those teams was Josh Allen. In all those games Josh Allen played, the best.
Yeah.
And then he plays against Lamar Jackson, the MVP candidate, and he gets blasted. They get blasted, I should say. I say he as in Bill Belichick, but like I should be referring to them as
No, I mean at this point they should just be called the New England Belichicks.
the Bill
But
Belichicks.
anyway,
But yeah, like he now
let's
is
move on from the Patriots.
No,
By the way,
no. He's playing.
The two teams that I hate the most, the Patriots and Cowboys, play in Week 12. You can be sure that I won't be watching that game.
But like Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. Like that is their slate in the next 4 weeks. And
I know.
And you're telling me they win all of those games?
I think they will. I think they'll win out. I really think that they'll finish this season 15-1.
After the Texans just had a bye and are gonna try to look as healthy as possible and make us strong. Okay. That's what you think.
Just watch. I won't be watching because I hate the Patriots, but you just watch and then tell me what happened.
Like they have the biggest turnover differential in like football history because they've played against the worst competition. And now they're going to play against real quarterbacks, and I'm really worried about New England now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And
now is the time of year where
their O-line isn't particularly good with the run either. Like I think they have a lot of holes. They have way too many holes. Greg Rosenthal looks at this New England team and doesn't think they're that good.
Greg Rosenthal always says the Patriots aren't that good. No, seriously. I mean, you don't like the history argument, but Bill Belichick has proven that this is a repeatable formula. This is the time of year where everybody doubts the Patriots, and then they go on a run and win the Super Bowl.
Though. No one's doubting them.
You're doubting them, Bryce.
It's just me. It's just me.
It's not just you.
I have Sony Michel on my team, and he sucks every week.
It's everybody. It's everybody who watched them lose to the Ravens. They're all like, "Oh, the Patriots are vulnerable now."
Everyone saw them lose to the Patriots, and the takeaway was Lamar Jackson is great. And yes, but the Patriots played one good quarterback all year.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays against MVP candidates back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying they went out. That's the most ridiculous thing.
Just watch it happen.
It's not gonna. I won't have to watch it happen because it's impossible. Remember, I'm never wrong. Don't look at my prediction where I say Mitchell Trubisky's gonna have the highest pass rating or some shit for the year.
Yep.
That might
You're
be
never wrong.
The most sad.
He's gonna have an incredible second half. You watch. Anyway, moving on from the Patriots, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, they lost to the Colts. Joe Flacco got benched. They beat the Browns with Brandon Allen, and then they had their bye. And that's it. I don't have anything else to say about them. Moving on. The Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, they beat the Bears on an Eddie Pinheiro missed field goal. That was an awful game. I watched it. Neither team wanted to win that, and the Bears just threw away the game harder. Then they beat the Packers in maybe the upset of the season, a game that I didn't actually watch because I was playing chess at the time.
And then you looked and were like, "What?"
No, I was in a chess tournament, and I kept in the Skittles room. And you're familiar with Gruenhagen Conference Center over at UWO.
Yeah.
there's a big TV in the room that we were using as the Skittles room, and so I was walking over there during my opponent's move on numerous occasions to check on the game, and I was just like, "What the hell is going on?" Um, it, uh, it was a bad game by the Packers, and we'll talk about it more when we get to the Packers. Um, and then they lost to the Raiders embarrassingly on Thursday Night Football. So, um, yeah, the Chargers are a weird team. They're hard to figure out. They've been very beat up, and then when they finally got some players back, they went and had that impressive game against the Packers, and you thought maybe this Chargers team is actually a good team.
Oh no.
But then they go and do that against the Raiders, and you're like, well, maybe not. And I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Chargers.
I think
They're not.
they are as okay. Every team's allowed one fluke game, and
Hmm.
so if and it's one where it's like if you just discard that one game and look at everything else. Granted, the next game they played was on a short week after an upset,
Yes.
so like there's that, and they were away in the black hole in one of the last black hole games you're ever gonna see against like a Raiders team that's better than everyone thinks. That everyone thought at least. That's the most interesting story I think is how the Raiders have been honestly. But they're not that good. Come on. They're not making the playoffs. They're alive. Congratulations. You got a upset win. Moving on in my head.
Yeah. Let's move on and let's talk about the Chiefs. Um, the team that Bryce hates. So they lost to the Packers with Matt Moore starting. They beat the Vikings with Matt Moore starting, and then they lost to the Titans um, on the road with Patrick Mahomes starting. Um,
Their defense is really bad.
yeah, it kind of is. Early in the season, they kind of gave us some hope that maybe they had fixed that with all the changes they made in the offseason, but it's still pretty bad. Um, they they still have a lot of work to do. So yeah, they are sitting there at 6-4. They're probably out of the picture for getting a bye, but they're still in the lead in their division. So they'll be in the playoffs, but they're going to have to go on the road in the divisional round to beat Baltimore or New England or whoever. So it's going to be a tough road for them.
Yeah.
All right, and they've lost 3 games in Arrowhead now, which is very strange. Um,
Their
but
just defense has missing pieces everywhere.
yeah,
Like that's the biggest takeaway is that you can beat them if you just like Patrick Mahomes is gonna score 25 minimum on you, right?
hmm,
But their defense is good at like is bad enough for you to actually like
yeah,
you can expose it. You can beat them. They're not gonna win the Super Bowl this year. I know
no,
our prediction is looking bleak of Bears Chiefs, but yeah.
yeah. Um, so anyway, uh, moving on to the Raiders, who are an interesting team because they have like no defense whatsoever, and that makes every game they play really fun. um, so they lost that game to the Texans that we talked about. Then they beat the Lions, and they took care of the Chargers on Thursday night. Um, so I don't have a lot to say about the Raiders. Anybody who doubted John Gruden, though, including myself, is starting to look like they were very wrong. Um, John Gruden has done a very good job with this team. And the John Gruden and Mike Mayock, their first draft class together, is looking excellent.
I mean, they got Josh Jacobs, and everyone was like, "We got a running back," and now
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "We got a running back."
Yeah.
That's the takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
We got Darren Waller. They have a lot of pieces that are a lot of name like people. Well, that's what I worry about draft classes like this, where you can like name like, oh, this skill position guy I got is so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I found that the best draft classes are ones where you really can't name the players, but they just stick around forever.
Yeah.
Those are those are the type of players you want in a draft class. One which basically means you want linemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. But anyway, I mean, I don't like I said, I don't have anything else to say about the Raiders. I'm ready to get onto the NFC. Um. If you are
Sure, yeah.
okay, so let's move to the Chicago Bears. Um. Of course, they lost in Week 8 to the Chargers. The Pinheiro missed kick at the end. Then they went on the road and lost to Philadelphia, and then they beat a Lions team that did not have Matthew Stafford in Week 10. So, yeah, the Bears are certainly a disappointing team, sitting at 4-5, and probably a long shot to make the playoffs at this point. And that's the difference between the AFC and the NFC. In the AFC, if you're sitting at 4-5, you still have a chance. The NFC, you're dead. Um,
It's funny because they're only
so,
one game off.
mm, but I mean, do you really think? I mean, do you really think they're going to catch these teams for the wild card? I mean,
Oh
right now
no,
the
no
two,
way, no way. But but
yeah,
but I said I just wanted to point out they're one game off of like the Cowboys, for example, and the Eagles. That's because the wild card teams are the Vikings and the Seahawks currently. So you
yeah.
have to
The
actually
Vikings are the 6th seed and they have 3
you
losses.
have to you are now 3 spots off of the wild card. That's why the division system kind of sucks. Is that a 5 and 4
Mm-hmm.
team you can't catch up to actually because they're in a
Yeah,
different division and their division just happens to not have the Packers Vikings in it.
yeah. I mean, I do. I go back and forth on whether or not I like the division system.
I mean, it's not the most optimal, but like people are it's
What I
not
what
going
I
anywhere.
do what I have always thought is that once you determine your 6 playoff teams, they should be reseeded based on record.
Well, that's
You know what
never
I
gonna
mean?
happen, but you're absolutely right. Like the reason
Yeah, it never will.
everyone agrees reseeding is the better way to do it, but you're gonna get people like, well, what do you guys know? What the
Hmm.
fuck? Unless if you're saying reseeding just based off record, which is then like that actually could happen. The more I
Well, yeah,
think about
that's what I'm saying. It's just reseed based on record.
it.
So
So
like,
like 2 people from one division can add the bye.
right. So like the current NFC playoffs, if these were the 6 seeds, 49ers and Packers would still be the top 2, and then you would have Seahawks number 3, Saints number 4, Vikings number 5, Cowboys number 6.
And it would also lead to better games.
Yeah.
And the thing that will always bite the NFL in the butt is that no matter what you do, you can't have like best of series in
Yeah.
football. So you're never gonna like upsets are always gonna be
Yeah.
more, which
Yeah, that's
actually
true.
hurts a lot.
Yeah,
So
but football's a brutal game. You just there's no way to do it.
there's no way it's impossible. There'd be no way in to like make it a best of series. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Bears are just a wash team, one of the most disappointing teams of the year, and I think we can move on to the more interesting teams in that division.
Yeah. So let's go to the Lions. Yeah, you really set me up there. Um
They're interesting.
no, they're not.
They're interesting. They've just
um,
okay. Ever since that Chiefs loss, they've been dead in the water. But
Yeah.
if they beat the Chiefs, we would have been talking of it just sucks that Matthew Stafford got hurt and that ever since that Chiefs game they've just done nothing but lose. Very
Mhm.
close, very heartbreaking games.
Yeah. Well,
They are
they
they're
did beat the Giants. They beat the G-Men in week 8. But then they lost at the Raiders and they lost at the Bears. One comment that I'd like to make about that Raiders game is apparently down a touchdown at the end of the game, the Lions were in a hurry up offense and the Raiders called a timeout. And normally you're like, well, why would the Raiders call timeout? That just helps the Lions get a play called, right? Well, apparently, after the game, Matthew Stafford said he had a play that he was going to run in the hurry up with all of his playmakers. And then for some reason, when the Raiders called timeout, the Lions decided to sub out Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones and all of their playmakers and basically put a jumbo package in, and Stafford couldn't run his play.
no, yeah, I
And
remember
it's
that
like
play.
only the Lions could find a way to lose like that.
Like it's actually like they have the pieces for a team that can make a deep playoff run, and they are held back by incompetence, bad luck, and beating the Lions.
Yep, basically. That's very accurate.
Talking about the Lions is like talking about a car crash.
Hmm. So yeah, that's the Lions. I don't have any more to say about them. So let's move to the Packers. So yeah, the Packers. So of course they had the win on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. Then they lost to the Chargers in that horrible game and bounced back last week against the Panthers, and now they're going into their bye. So the Chiefs game, I will say, the Packers were badly outcoached in the first half on offense and defense, and I mean, the Chiefs were winning at halftime, and it just looked like the Packers were the far inferior team, even with Matt Moore at quarterback for the Chiefs. And I was concerned, but then they bounced back in the second half, got the win, and all was well. That Chargers game was a total collapse, and like apparently they got to LA a day early, and apparently some of the players went out and partied the night before, which was dumb, and that may have been a
Happens.
factor. But
Happens.
like you said, we're kind of allowing every team to have one fluke game. This was the Packers' fluke
It's
loss.
just it's so compared to every other game. Like even their play calls seemed so lackluster, and like everyone was like
Yeah,
a half step late. Like it felt like they were playing on Thursday night on a Sunday night. It was really weird, or a Sunday.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, I'm willing to throw out that game, and they looked decent against the Panthers in Week 10. Who we'll talk about the Panthers when we get to them, but I actually think the Panthers are a pretty good football team. Um, we were super low on them coming into the year, but I feel like they are well coached and they have a lot of good players.
Yeah,
And they're playing really well, even with Kyle Allen
but back to the
taking over
Packers
for
for
Cam
now.
Newton. But back to the Packers. I mean, they're sitting at 8-2, and they've got their bye week this week, and then a huge game at the 49ers, which has been flexed into Sunday night
I
in,
saw that.
in
Yeah.
week 12, which is just setting up the Packers for another horrible primetime loss. I
Oh,
mean, if you
what
look at the primetime games the Packers have played this season, it was a Thursday night game where they scored 10 points against the Bears,
one?
a Thursday night game where they played very poorly against the Eagles and lost, a Monday night game that they absolutely should have lost to the Lions, and then a Sunday night game where they got terribly outcoached by the Chiefs and almost lost to Matt Moore. And now it's going to be a 49ers game where they get blown out by Kyle Shanahan. And then week 16, Monday Night Football, they're going to lose to the Vikings. So, I mean, the Packers in prime time this year, I don't know. I'm not I'm not too thrilled. But
Um,
all that said, they're 8-2, and right now there's reason to be happy as a Packers fan.
Opinion on Blake Martinez. Now, go.
Okay, Blake Martinez. I know you. I knew you were going to bring this up. He's of course the Packers' leading tackler, but he's not that good. He's like a lot of these tackles. He's getting, he gets to the running back, but then he's getting run over as he's making the tackle, or he's dragging them down 4 or 5 yards downfield, and like the Packers run defense I think has been so bad in large part due to Blake Martinez. Um and I don't think he's necessarily a bad player, but he is not starting quality, I don't think.
All right, I agree that I wanted to know if you're like actually like as low on him as I was
Yeah, I'm not a delusional Packers fan. I don't
because
see all those I don't see all the tackles and go, "Oh, he's the best player we have." Um
yeah
speaking
he's
of
trash.
speaking of the best player we have, bit disappointed by Jair Alexander this season, only because I had such high expectations for him.
I still think he's good. Come on.
I think he's good. I didn't hear what you just said.
I just say I still think he's good. Come on.
Okay,
I was just being stupid. Don't worry about
got it.
it.
Um, and I still think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a shutdown corner. The good news is I think that Kevin King is also a very good corner, and he's proven that in that Panthers game, he made several awesome plays. Like he read one screen pass where he just read it and made the tackle behind the line of scrimmage, and it was great. Like he read the play absolutely perfectly, and he made several great plays on passes thrown his direction. And I mean, Kevin King might actually be the better player than Jair, and I'm very surprised by that. But
No, but
the good news is they're both very good.
yes, that's the yes. He's not the better player, but he's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I'm
better plays a little much. Come on, boys, a little much, a little more. I
like
know,
I'm
but I've
I'm
always
very
thought he's very
impressed.
good. I've always thought he was very good. I didn't know why you were even like not as high on him. I think you found two corners. That's the big thing.
The reason I was never high on Kevin King is because he was just never on the field. He was constantly hurt.
Yes. Okay.
Um,
Fair.
but this year he's played without injury and he's been great. Um, so yeah, I'm very happy about that. And I love Darnell Savage. Every week he makes some nice plays.
Yeah, he's your best defensive DB. He's your DB. In
Yeah.
the secondary, I called it beginning of the season. He was going to be your best guy, and you're like, we'll see. And I'm like, who was right? Who was right?
No, I mean you nailed this one. But yeah, the problem with our defense is the linebackers, and I Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith have been great at getting pressure, but we just don't have a run defense right now. Also, I think that lack of depth in certain positions on defense is hurting us. I saw a stat that Kenny Clark is playing more snaps than any defensive tackle in football right now, and
That's a dangerous stat.
yes, it is.
I'm not. That would always make me like.
And like I love Kenny Clark, but he's like you can tell when the Packers are getting gashed late in games that like he's tired. Like we need somebody who can take some snaps and, get him some rest throughout the game. And I feel like we just don't have anybody else who can play defensive tackle. Um and then of course, I mean Blake Martinez, like I said, I feel like he's a good player, but he's just not cut out to be a starting middle linebacker. Um, and yeah, so we still have some work to do on defense. Like I said, like going into this year, I didn't think this was going to be the Packers' year. I think that next year we might have a chance to actually do something. And right now, frankly, we're overachieving to be 8-2, and I'm very happy with how this season has gone.
I still think you're a contender for the Super Bowl this year. I still think
Well,
that.
absolutely. I mean, we're only one game behind the 49ers, who we play next. So, yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you guys are still like home field advantage. If you get that in the playoffs, I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing you have to do is hope that the Ravens don't make the Super Bowl at that point. If the
Or
Ravens
the
make the Super
Patriots.
Bowl, it's like, oh, okay. You have it's a showdown between Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. That'd be a fun Super Bowl. Oh,
It would be a fun
want
Super
that.
Bowl.
I want that so bad. I want it so bad now.
That's okay though. The Patriots will knock off the Ravens for us.
And then you have to play against Sony Michel, and he is trash. So, okay.
Yeah. The Packers' ceiling is, I think, still losing to either
Russell Wilson, if anyone. Only Russell.
I feel like the Packers' ceiling this season is losing some heartbreaking playoff game. It'll either be the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Saints, the Patriots, or the Ravens. One of those teams will knock the Packers out. I guarantee it.
I don't think the Saints are good enough to beat you guys. I think you only really have to worry about 3 teams right now. The Ravens, the 49ers, and the Seahawks.
And the Patriots.
You're scared. Whatever. You're not... blah, blah. I really don't think the Patriots are that good this year, and next year they're going to crash. I think next year is the year.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a decade. At least I have.
I only said that 2 years ago, and then I stopped saying that, and now I'm back on the train.
They've been to 3 straight Super Bowls. Come on. And it's gonna be 4 like, this year.
The 3 straight Super Bowls. Come on. And I'm like, okay.
It's gonna be 4 this year, though. So anyway, we can move on from the Packers for now. So going on to the Minnesota Vikings, they now sit at 7-3 after getting that win that we already talked about against the Racists, losing to Matt Moore and the Chiefs, and then beating the Cowboys last Sunday night. The game against the Cowboys was pretty impressive. They played very well. Kirk Cousins did not have a great game, but he played well enough, which is rare in prime time for him. So, yeah, that's the Vikings right now. They're a game behind the Packers, and the Packers are going to lose their next game. So, the Vikings are in good position. And I could definitely see the Vikings actually winning the NFC North.
I can see them winning the NFC North, but I still think they suffer the I mean, the reason why the Vikings are in a very good spot is because they have a defensive-minded coach with every piece on offense working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the biggest, like, you got a franchise quarterback, and whatever people want to say about Kirk Cousins, I don't care. You're wrong. He's good. Like, you have a franchise.
He's average.
He's above average. He is above average.
He's very near the Dalton line. He's
closer to the Dalton line than the Stafford line. How about that? And the Stafford line
definitely
of a good quarterback. That of like one
he's
of the elite quarterbacks.
He's above average, but just barely.
Not barely. There is a Cousins line, and there are people who fall above and below the Cousins line. I think that there are the 3 lines of quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
Let's just say
there's
Derek Carr is in between the Cousins and Dalton line. All right.
Disagree. Derek Carr is better than Kirk Cousins. But just so that we're clear, there's also a Sam Darnold line and there's a Phillip Rivers line. Where those are, I have no idea.
And there's a Mahomes line above all of this, encompassing
Yeah,
everything
clearly.
with an ominous
Every
shadow.
every quarterback is just kind of his own line. If you
And
think
then
about
with
it,
that, there are no lines.
there's a Ryan Fitzpatrick line. You know.
There's a Fitzmagic line and a Fitzpatrick line. They're two different things.
Yeah. The Fitzpatrick line is pretty low. The Fitzmagic line is way up there.
Yeah.
Nick Foles is a quarterback with multiple lines. You got early season Foles line and late season Foles line.
I like where we've gone with this.
Definitely. Do we have anything else to say about the Vikings?
I want to just keep talking about lines in all honesty.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, lines. What can you say about them?
What can't
There-
you say about them? More like it.
I mean, there's conga lines.
Okay, I'm done. Okay. I didn't mean that in a literal sense, but okay. Here we go.
Okay, let's move on to the Buccaneers.
Sure.
Um, okay. The Buccaneers in Week 8 lost to the Titans in a game that the officials helped the Titans out, as I mentioned earlier. Then they lost in a thrilling overtime game against the Seahawks, and then beat the Cardinals last week. So yeah, and also we nailed those last 3 games for them. We got all 3 of those results right.
For which team?
that's-
Which team?
For the Buccaneers.
Yeah. A team that we are too familiar with, I guess.
Yeah, we just know them too well. But yeah, the Buccaneers. I had this thought. So you're familiar with the concept of confirmation bias, right?
Yes.
Where like if you
You see something and you think, "Oh, that must mean it's
Right.
result-based analysis, essentially."
Well, yes, but like if you go into like if you have some sort of bias or some sort of agenda, you're more likely to see things that confirm your own biases.
Yes.
And
That's the
my theory is that some scientists in a lab at one point said, can we make a human being that is the living embodiment of confirmation bias? And the result was Jameis Winston, where if you believe he's a good player, you will see tons of evidence that he is a good quarterback, that he makes great throws in certain situations. And if you believe he is a bad quarterback, you will see tons of evidence that he is a bad quarterback too. He is the living embodiment of confirmation bias. This has been my thesis.
Thank you for coming
about
to my
Jameis
TED
Winston.
Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Honestly, I could not sum up the Buccaneers in any other way that would match how accurate that was. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Actually, you did
All
it
right.
for me. Thanks. If you drafted,
Great.
I will say, if you drafted, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, congratulations.
Yeah,
You're the
especially
real
Chris
winner.
Godwin. I mean, why does he throw to Chris Godwin so much?
Because
I just
Godwin never drops the ball and he's fantastic.
okay.
Like, have you seen Chris Godwin play?
Yeah, I mean he's good, but like he's not as good as Mike Evans.
Man, why would you ever throw it to Smith-Schuster? You have Antonio Brown on your team.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Evans should get a lot more targets than he does relative to Chris Godwin.
No, they're both good. They're both they're on the same plane right now, and one of them's younger and one of them's faster.
It just seems like he constantly throws to Chris Godwin and never throws to Mike Evans. Living embodiment of confirmation bias, am I right?
Oh my fucking god. If that was the entire purpose of that argument, that's impressive.
It was not. It was not the entire purpose of that, but it worked out well.
So I'll leave it at that.
Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons, who in week 8 lost to the Seahawks in a game that I feel the Seahawks did not play very well, but still won. Then they had their bye week 9, and then coming out of the bye, they shocked the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. And that was a really weird game. Um, I actually watched that game, and was very surprised. I mean, the Saints just played badly, and the Falcons suddenly looked like they had a running game, which they haven't had all season, and they looked like they had a pass rush. They sacked Breeze, I think, 6 times or something.
Something in coaching had to have just either flipped or it
Like
was just a fluke game.
they shuffled their coaching staff around during the bye week, and I'm wondering if that had this effect or if, like you said, it was just a fluke game. And I guess we'll find out over the next few weeks whether
There's
that was a
not a lot
fluke
you
for the
can
Falcons or
say.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're sitting now at 2-7, and their 2 wins were against the Eagles and Saints. So yeah, that's a little weird. Um, but yeah. Um, so let's move on, I guess, from the Falcons. I guess we're still kind of just waiting to see what happens with this team. Um, and for the record, we had them predicted to be very good this year, and they haven't been, but maybe they'll turn it around in the second half.
Maybe. Like I thought they had the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it really looked like they did. Um, so we'll see what happens. But moving on to the Carolina Panthers. Um, so they came out of their bye and just got embarrassed by the 49ers in week 8. Then they played the Titans at home and won, and then lost to the Packers on the road last week. Um, and again, they're now sitting at 5-4, so they're outside the playoffs. Probably not going to make it, but
The only
um,
team they can catch is a Saints team that just got embarrassed by the Falcons.
yeah.
They're not. They're not too. If I'm a Panthers fan, I relish in this moment and I let my imagination run wild.
Well, yeah, and I mean they do still play the Saints twice. So if they beat the Saints in both of those games, they're in position. Um, but yeah, I mean this team has honestly been very impressive with Kyle Allen at quarterback. I mean they went 4-0 in his first 4 starts, and then you know went into their bye and then got blown out by the 49ers. But they've been good, and I'm really impressed by the Panthers. I think they're a good football team.
All right. Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what they do with Cam Newton moving forward, because of course he is done for the year now. And there's been talk that they might try to move on from him this offseason,
Yeah.
which to
He's going
me,
to the Bears. Yeah.
yeah, to me, it's a little crazy that, it's not that long ago that he was the MVP. Um, but he really hasn't been the same player since that Super Bowl loss. And I mean, I don't know. It's a hard situation to figure out, and we'll just have to wait and see what they do. Um, but moving on for now to the New Orleans Saints. Um, so they beat the Cardinals in Week 8. That was Drew Brees' first game back from his injury. Then they had their bye in Week 9, and then came out of their bye and lost to the Falcons. And I don't know. I really do. The more I think about it, the more I feel like this is just a fluke game by the Falcons, you know?
Yeah.
And like it's a division rivalry, and that particular rivalry is a very fierce one, so you just never know what's going to happen. Um
Yeah. Blah,
I
blah,
do still
blah, blah,
feel
blah.
I do still feel like the Saints are one of the best teams in the NFL. And I think they'll get right. They've got at Buccaneers this week, Sorry, Tampa. Um, then they have the Panthers at home. Then they have the Falcons again on Thanksgiving night. And I feel like they're going to get revenge on the Falcons in that game. And I feel like they'll bounce back. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you have any other thoughts on the Saints, share them. But otherwise, I'm ready to move on.
Their running game was underwhelming, and Alvin Kamara isn't as good without Mark Ingram.
Mm. Yeah, although Latavius Murray has...
That was the piece that made Alvin Kamara better. That was it.
Latavius Murray has actually been pretty good, though.
He is, but Mark Ingram made Kamara better. That's what...
I'm not going to disagree.
That's what this guy doesn't do. I don't know why. Latavius Murray, yeah. That's what he doesn't do.
Okay.
He doesn't make Kamara better. That's the problem.
Okay, so let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. So they had their bye in week 8, and then they came back and beat the G-Men on Monday Night Football, and then lost to the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Yeah, I don't have much to say about the Cowboys, to be honest. They are pretty much what I expected them to be so far. They're 5-4, currently leading their division. They're tied with the Eagles, who they beat back in week 7. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to say about the Dallas Cowboys.
Dak Prescott is their best piece on offense. And Gallup is better than Amari Cooper.
I would argue that there are several offensive linemen better than Dak Prescott.
No, he's the most important piece. He's the most important piece. Did I say?
I disagree. I really think that their offensive line is more important right now than Prescott.
To win now, yeah. But I think the most important piece for the Dallas Cowboy franchise is Dak Prescott, right?
I just think that there are several quarterbacks worse than Prescott that you could put behind that line and they would do fine.
Well, yeah, for the short term, I agree. Yeah, but
I mean, if you put Andy Dalton on that team, I feel like you'd be right where you are with Dak right now.
No, you're not giving Dak Prescott as much credit as he's.
I mean, 5-4. They're not that impressive
because
right
Ezekiel Elliott is not good. I told you he wouldn't finish top 5 in running, despite his O-line, despite everything.
Yeah,
he's not. He might not even be top 10.
Yeah, you might end up being right. That's kind of crazy, but yeah.
I called that this guy was not going to do well this season. Well, not. He's fine. He's doing fine, but that's product of his O-line more than him. He looks. I love it because I can. This is where I go and say that Skip Bayless was right when he said that Ezekiel Elliott looks like a shell of his former self, and that he is no longer as good. So I can tell you again, Skip Bayless. I swear, if you listen to him, he's not. He's fun. I swear. He doesn't just talk out his ass.
No, he doesn't. But he's. I don't know. I don't pay attention to him. I imagine he had some great takes after the Packers lost to the Chargers, and I don't care at all. He probably has some great takes about the Saints after that loss to the Falcons. He's a hot take guy, and it's stupid.
He tells great, yeah, he has great narratives, right? He tells great narratives. He tells great stories that put me to bed and get me excited for football on Sunday. But he doesn't. They don't come from thin air, and they don't. They do. He does watch the games, and whenever the Cowboys come up, I have to keep telling people that the real worst voice in football is Colin Cowherd.
I don't pay attention to him either, so
I won't either. No, I haven't for a long time. But holy shit, is he the one who doesn't say anything?
All right. Well, let's move on to the Eagles. So they beat the Bills coming out of that lost to the Cowboys. They beat the Bills and Bears. Um, and then they had their bye in week 10, and they got a boost with the Vikings beating the Cowboys in week 10. Um, so I feel like that Bills win was a statement game for them. And then the Bears, again, they just kind of dominated in that game. And I feel like this Eagles team is a lot closer to the team that we expected them to be than they were at the beginning of the year. They're getting some of their pieces back and healthy. They finally have their corners back, and that was, I mean, a huge weakness for them. Um, and like they're finally getting healthy now. They've had a bye week, and they're going into this huge game against the Patriots. Um, should be interesting. So yeah, I think this Eagles team is good, and I honestly I really do think they'll beat the Cowboys the next time around, and I think they'll win this division. Um, and I want it to happen because I hate the Cowboys. Um, and by the way, we need to talk about my prediction about three NFC East head coaches getting fired. Um, already Jay Gruden's gotten fired, so that's one. But and it looks like Pat Shermer with the Giants is probably out the door. But
And if Jason Garrett doesn't make the playoffs,
yeah, I feel exactly. I feel like he's gone. And but the thing is, it has to be the Eagles winning the division because if the Cowboys win the division and the Eagles miss, Doug Peterson is not going to get fired. So it's got to be the Eagles. They have to catch the Cowboys in order for my prediction to be right. Um,
I
but
don't think
yeah,
that's too out of the blue because
no, I mean they're tied right
they
now
don't
and they
have
still
a
play again.
I mean the part of that really worries me about the Eagles is that they haven't committed to Miles Sanders yet, and I didn't think they were, but like he's clearly the best running back on that team, and I think that Jordan Howard's great and all, but like if you play more Miles Sanders, you're going to be a better team. And this
Hmm.
it sucks that Deshaun Jackson got like two plays all season.
Yeah,
That really like it bummed me out, but
that really does suck. I wanted Deshaun Jackson to play a bigger role, and unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to play. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they that was an interesting noise.
yeah, that was
Um,
the weirdest yawn I've ever had.
so I'm hoping that the Eagles can catch the Cowboys. And we'll see if it happens. And if it does, I feel like my prediction is a slam dunk. Like it's in the bag at that point if the Cowboys miss the playoffs. Um, but anyway, let's move on to G-Man. Um,
The most
so
enthusiastic thing you've done all day.
yes. Um, so they have lost their last three. They've actually lost their last six. Um, the in the last 3 weeks they lost to the Lions, Cowboys, and Jets, and they are sitting now at 2-8. What a disappointment! Daniel Jones has actually looked good though. It's just that the rest of his team is terrible.
Hey,
Um,
Saquon is fantastic. He just had like he was not
he
healthy.
has
He
he
was
has
not
not
healthy.
looked he's not looked right, and I think you're right. He's not
He's
healthy.
he is the generational talent. Like Christian McCaffrey is one thing. Holy fuck, Saquon Barkley. Like just if they ruin Saquon Barkley, I will never forgive the Giants franchise for till the day
Yeah,
I die. I want to see this guy in his
yeah.
full form
Saquon.
have a 10-year career because he's one of the best running backs you'll ever see.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley, when he's right, is clearly one of the best running backs in the game. I don't think anyone can argue that, if not the best. But he hasn't been himself the last few weeks, and the Giants have suffered because of it. And yeah, that team just looks awful. Pat Shermer's done. Uh, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's done well before the end of the season. let's try to predict now when he gets fired because the Giants are on bye this week. Then they've got coming out of their bye at Bears, then versus Packers, at Eagles, and then week 15 versus Dolphins. I kind of feel like they will lose to the Bears, Packers, and Eagles. I don't think that's a stretch.
If they lose against the Dolphins, is he canned?
I feel like okay, so after the Bears, Packers, and Eagles games, they're 2-11 after those losses, right? Then I'm thinking if they lose at home against the Dolphins, I feel like he's done. And
Yeah.
then after that, they've got at racists and then versus Eagles to finish the season. So yeah, I mean I feel like if they lose to the Dolphins in week 15, that's the end. That's my prediction. I'm thinking week 15 for when Pat Shermer gets fired after that week 15 game.
All right.
All right. Vamp for a second.
Vamp. All right. So I don't know if I've ever explained it here, but I'm a very big Suns fan, and I've been watching. I wouldn't say very big. I'm a Suns fan. I don't really watch a lot of basketball except for this season, because usually the team that I want to root for, especially in the past decade, because I haven't really liked them since the 2000s. Steve Nash Suns. So it's been okay. You're back, I assume.
I am back, yeah.
I was about to vent on the Suns. And
Yeah.
how tragic the loss was, but how we're probably gonna be the best team in the West and win the whole thing this year.
Mhm. Yeah, I have been following the Bucks. They've had a good start. Um but anyway, we don't need to talk about them now. Let's move on to the Washington Racists. So they lost to the Vikings and Bills and then had their bye and they now sit at 1-8. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
About
They're
the Redskins.
yeah, they're a bad team.
Yeah, I wish
Yeah.
I traded Terry McLaurin when I had the chance.
Mhm. Mhm. They're a bad team.
Yep, I could have gotten
All
like
right.
Julio Jones. I swear, I could have gotten Julio Jones. I could have.
Okay. So moving on to the 49ers. So oh, and we didn't enter their game from Thursday yet. I'll do that right now. Or from Monday rather. Oh my god. Why? Okay. Google Sheets was being stupid for a minute there. Okay. And now dang it. Hang on 1 second, Bryce.
Oh, I know what I need to do.
Okay. There we go. All right. Are you still there?
I'm right here.
Okay. Cool. Um so yeah, the 49ers. Sorry about that. Um the 49ers blew out the Panthers in week 8. Took care of the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football in a very exciting game. Um, I believe it was a 3-point game at the end. So nice, close game. And then they lost that heartbreaker on Monday to the Seahawks. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were the last undefeated team. And they are now 8-1. And I feel very good about our predictions for the 49ers. We still could get everything right. It's unlikely, but if they beat the Seahawks in Seattle and lose to the Rams at home, we will have actually gotten, and they win all their other games, of course. we will have
Yep.
actually gotten them right. Um,
Which, you know what? We can go out drinking in the off season when I am of age.
yes.
I swear.
Um,
That's how Wisconsin works when I think of people who live in Wisconsin.
um, but anyway, yeah, they're a good football team. Um, they've got the Cardinals again. I hate when the schedule makers do this, where they have Cardinals, Seahawks, Cardinals on their schedule. Like, why? Why do you have
Where
them play?
teams only get like 2 weeks
Why do
between.
you have two teams play twice in 3 weeks? It's just dumb. Um, but anyway, so yeah, we'll see what happens with the 49ers, but right now they still look like the best team in the NFC. Even after that loss to the Seahawks.
Yeah, they played better than the Seahawks. I think a lot had to go wrong for the Seahawks. I mean, for the 49ers. Like, Kittle being hurt's one thing. Sanders
Yeah.
going down is another thing. But, like,
Breida also got hurt in that game.
yeah, which, good for me. I'm starting the guy who's subbed in for Breida,
Mm-hmm.
Moser. I'm probably going to start him over David Johnson.
Yeah.
Speaking, we aren't at the Cardinals yet, but oh boy, I could have traded him as well.
Yeah. Okay, so should we move on to the Cardinals then?
Sure.
All right. So, the Arizona Cardinals, they've lost their last 3 games. They lost to the Saints, the 49ers, and the Buccaneers. And they are now 3-6-1 on the season. But honestly, it hasn't been a bad season for Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. They've I feel like they've achieved so far what they wanted to achieve. This was never going to be a contending team, but I feel like they've made progress, and you see from Kyler Murray what I think you want to see from a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, Kyle Murray is the second best rookie quarterback of this class.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, behind, oh, I can't even think of anybody. Who's the Broncos guy that's hurt? Drew Lock. um. Oh, but really, Dwayne Haskins? I mean, you're not going to give him any credit.
In all seriousness, I really do like Kyle Murray.
Yeah, he's fun
and
to
Christian
watch.
Kirk is number one guy. I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's not gonna have 3 touchdowns every game. Although it did save me this week.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. I had Saquon Barkley and David Johnson give me like a combined 4 points, and I won by like a landslide still because I had Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Thank the football gods.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, anyway, I don't have any other thoughts on Arizona, so let's move on to the Rams. The Rams had that win against the Bengals in London, then their bye, and then the Steelers in Week 10, and they lost embarrassingly to Pittsburgh. Brandon Cooks went down with a concussion in that Bengals game, and it seems very possible that he'll never play again. And that obviously that's
really? Brandon Cooks is like Sterling Shepard right now? I didn't hear about that.
Oh yeah, it's he's had a lot of concussions going back to that Super Bowl. I believe when he was still with the Patriots, right? And against the Falcons, he had a concussion in that game, if I remember correctly. And he it's just been a recurring thing, and it just seems like he may never play again, which is obviously scary. But from the football angle, it's a huge blow to the Rams offense. They need him.
Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks and like all these guys, they're all better when they're all three on the field.
Yes, they are. Cooper Cup did not record a stat last week.
Which is the biggest surprise for fantasy owners for one, but like more importantly, like oh boy.
Yeah. So yeah, their offense obviously looked terrible, and I mean they were playing a good Steelers defense, but they looked really bad. We'll see how they look this week against the Bears. And I mean, I this Rams team has been pretty disappointing this year, but they're still in the mix, so you never really know. They could still make the playoffs. They could get back into it. I kind of have a feeling they won't, though.
Yup. The Rams are dead in the water, I think.
Yeah, they're sitting at 5-4 now, and they've got Bears, Ravens, Cardinals, Seahawks, Cowboys, 49ers, Cardinals to finish the year. I feel like they'll probably beat the Cardinals twice. They'll probably beat the Bears at home this week. But like Ravens, Seahawks, Cowboys, 49ers, I don't know if they win any of those games.
Yeah. Fair, honestly.
Which I mean, if that indeed happens, they end up finishing the year 8-8, which is certainly a disappointing season. So anyway, let's move to the Seattle Seahawks. Then the last team we have to talk about, and they've won their last three. They beat the Falcons in a sloppy game, which it kind of almost seemed like they were trying to lose at the end. They beat the Buccaneers in overtime in that game we discussed earlier. And then they beat the 49ers in that crazy Monday night football game with all the turnovers. But they're sitting at 8-2 now. And they look like a very good team. Definitely a Super Bowl contender. It's still well within their reach to catch the 49ers. Of course, they're only one game back and they play them again. I mean, they could end up with home field advantage in the NFC if they continue this way, and they could win the Super Bowl. And Russell Wilson should be the MVP at this point.
Fair. The Seahawks, I think Russ should get his MVP. It's sad he hasn't gotten one. Like,
yeah,
come on.
But well, I mean, if you think about it, it's like last year. Sorry, last year was Mahomes, and then
I'm sorry, I'm boring for you.
Yeah, you are. You're terribly boring. It's just like he's always been good, but he's never been the best. And this year, he finally looks like he might actually be the best and get that MVP. But you never know. There's still a lot of football to be played.
He might be the best. If I say he's the best scrambling quarterback of all time, am I wrong?
Well,
A-Rod?
I mean, you did mention Michael Vick earlier.
He's not the best scrambling quarterback of all time. He's the best running quarterback of all time. And I think there are two different things there.
There are. True. I would actually have to agree with you. I think Russell Wilson, the way he always keeps his eyes down the field is very impressive.
The guy who contests him more than anyone else, or the guy who can contest him better than anyone else in history is Randall Cunningham. But I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's. Yeah, I really don't think he's even that close.
No, I mean Russell Wilson is a special player. He does things that nobody else can do. Um, I love watching him play. I just hate that he plays for the Seahawks, who are a team that I don't really like. Okay, sorry again. So that brings us to the end of the 32 teams. That's all of them. Um, and we did it. We're back up to date. um, so
All right.
any closing football thoughts?
Uh, I think that the thing I'm most proud of is predicting the 49ers to be as good as they are based on the
Definitely.
strength of schedule and based on their scheme that they came up with. And even with all the injuries last year, they still looked like they were contestable in every game. They have the pieces everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I
That's the
mean,
most impressive thing.
so far in the season, the 49ers, and I'm very happy about that too.
I think that
Into
like
the year, going into the year, it seemed like one of the predictions we'd made that was very likely to, but we've actually, I mean, that one might be our best prediction.
that is 100% the best prediction we've ever had.
Hmm.
I think
Well, Lions Chiefs, even though we got, was probably the best prediction we've ever had.
we were so close, but
I know.
it didn't pan out, so we can't say that. No,
Yeah.
we can't. It never panned out.
Okay. All right. So let's move on from football then. Um so last time it talked about the two music into the previous time and new ones because we just forgot.
Uh-huh. Hello?
Should probably recommend some new ones.
Okay, so what he's trying to say is that we're gonna do some music recommendation for the first time in a while. You just lagged out like
Sorry,
a
what?
lot. You just lagged out like a fuck ton. So I just explained to like
Oh, okay.
we're doing music now. It's music time. Recommending
Right.
music time.
Right. I had said that last time we just forgot to recommend
Yeah.
new stuff. So, yeah.
That was the story, indeed.
Yeah, that's what happened. Okay. So would you like to go?
Um, sorry, I'm also coding at the same time. So
Oh,
yeah, I know. We have in our SE, we're making a game, and I'm basically the one that gets to make the levels. So I get to play Mario Maker, essentially.
nice.
Yeah, I get to make all the levels, and I get to decide where they are and how difficult they are, and some of the gameplay mechanics. It's fun, but the album I'm recommending to get back, to tangent back smoothly. I don't know if you've ever heard of this band. I don't know if you will, but I know for a fact you'll like this album. This is a more nostalgic, forefront band to be recommending. It's more they're abrasive. They are they're very shock value-y. You're gonna see by the the names of these songs that are within their discography. They are known for this more uh I want to make you mad, and I'm just doing this to make you mad. I'm recommending mindless self-indulgence. Frankenstein girls will seem oddly sexy. They are the genre I would call them is industrial punk hip hop, and I think you'll like them. All right? Did you get that?
Okay. I got that. Hang on. I'm just looking for it.
Mindless self-indulgence. 3
Got
words.
it.
Yeah. If you look at the titles of some of these songs, you don't have to say them out loud, but
Yeah.
they're in alphabetical order if you couldn't tell.
Oh, nice. I like alphabetical order.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the shock value. I swear.
Hmm. Okay, and I noticed there's 30 of them,
But look at
but
the
they're all
length.
really short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at it's a 30 minute. There's a 30 song album that's 55 minutes.
Yeah. So, okay. Huh. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Linkin Park, a lot of their songs, a lot of the way that they decided to write their first few albums comes from the formulas that mindless self-indulgence made.
Hmm.
Like this is the band that influenced new metal a lot, and no one's gonna talk about them, even though I think they're probably my favorite.
Hmm. All right. Should be interesting. All right. So the album I'm going to recommend, now you're either going to love this or hate it.
Okay.
I'm sure it's one you've heard
The
before.
last one we did of that, you really hated, even though I gave it a 10 for the year.
Yeah. Um, a lot of the songs sound the same on this album, which is why I'm going to say you're either going to love it or hate it. But the album is Smash by The Offspring.
Smashes the way you feel as before. I don't wanna do it no more. I wanna be who I wanna be. Getting hard for others to see. I'm a asshole. Don't give a fuck. All that good jam.
Hmm.
I listened to this album a lot as a kid.
Okay.
I know a lot of the songs by heart. My favorite track on the album is "Gotta Get Away." At least it
Hmm.
was. So, uh, yeah, I'm familiar, quite familiar with the Offspring's Smash, and I actually think of all the like pop punk of the '90s. It's the most. It's one of the more raw. And looking back at it, as although it's not as good as before, and how much I used to relish in it. I really liked Smash as a kid, and of course,
Okay.
you got a few quintessential tracks on here that I
Yeah.
don't. I like come out and plays at one of those. You got. Why am I forgetting? Why? I can think of it. I can think of the medley in my head. You know the song I'm thinking about.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, you do because it's the track of the album.
Well, okay, there's two that I think might be the one you're thinking
There's
of
"Come Out
then.
and Play," and then there's one other track on it.
Okay. Are you referring to Self Esteem?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's no other tracks that are like popular off the album.
Okay, but what about the. Well, okay. Whatever.
There were two hits off the album.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Like I don't. I mean, there's Nitro was also one of my favorite tracks. I loved Nitro was like my first ever like punk song I really heard, and like true punk energy, and how like fast everything was, and how like hard in your face everything happened, and like it was the first punk album as a little kid I actually listened to.
Hmm.
And it has more punk energy than most pop punk. However, like I'm sad that like the route that Offspring went was just a more refined, more just basic song structure, less. They had two paths they could have gone from Smash, and they chose to be more commercial. And it to this day, it's like, aw,
Mm. I
aw.
do like a lot of their other singles though, from like their later albums.
I mean, they're fun, but I think they could have been a lot more. Like you
All
have,
right.
there are some trash singles. You got it. There are a lot of bad songs. Like
Yes.
like the song "Want You Bad" to this day is one of the worst songs I have ever heard from them.
Mm.
It's so bad. It's I don't know. I basically gave a review of that album. I
Yeah,
realized.
you really did. That's okay though. You can give the exact same review again next time. um,
All right.
but that's good. I mean, it sounds like you already know and like this album, so hopefully you'll
Yeah,
like it
I
again.
liked it as a kid a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel. Right now, I think I'll probably give it like a 6 or 7, probably. which means I like it. It's just that there are clear fundamental flaws with it still.
By the way, one of the things I really like about this band is that Dexter Holland, the singer, is like also a super smart dude.
Yeah, he's a chemistry major.
Yeah, he's like working on curing AIDS and stuff.
Yeah,
Like that's pretty cool.
that's one of those like, oh, fun fact, nice.
Yeah, not many like punk rockers also are working on a cure for AIDS and have a PhD. Like that's pretty cool.
Cure for cancer, cure for AIDS, make a man
Yep.
want to stay on tour for days.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So anyway,
How you been?
yeah. I've been all right.
How's the chess
Um,
tournament?
yeah, it was fun.
McDonald's treating you all right?
Yeah. Um, yeah. The chess was fine. I didn't play particularly well, but it was fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really been up to much. How about you?
I don't like algorithms, but I have a 72.
Oh, so the thing you were worried about last time seems to have worked out.
I have a 72%. I did all right on the test, and the last assignment I thought we bombed about potential energy and stuff.
Hmm.
Hey, we didn't do too bad. We fucked up the like potential energy part of it, but we didn't do we I think we got like 0 points on that like 10-point part of the problem, but like those were like all the points we missed, and that was it.
Oh, well, all right.
That's not too bad.
No, I mean 72 is 72 in that class. Like
Yeah,
it's a
72
difficult
is above
class.
average.
Hmm.
Every assignment I do better than the average. And you know what?
Hmm.
You know what? I don't know what else to say about that class. Like some people, like I complain, like in the Discord, the Oshkosh, CS Discord,
Hmm.
like about First and he's like, it's not too bad anymore, and I'm like, dude, he told us in class that we wouldn't have to do, like I forget what it was, but it was basically we wouldn't have to come up with our own, like it was some proof, something we were doing. Wouldn't have to come up with our own, and he would provide us with something, and then we'd have to prove why that would hold. And then, like on the next assignment, it's like come up with your own.
Hmm.
Like he lies to you straight in your face, and you're like, he's not that bad.
Hmm.
Come on. Just because he's good at hiding him being a liar, it doesn't mean. I think that's the biggest thing there. Like people don't actually like pay attention. They're too caught up with like I need to do good anyway. And if they're passing, it's fine. You're a good teacher, you know. But the second you start failing, I think people start to like, you know,
Yeah, I
confirmation
know.
bias. You know, that is it. And I think a lot
Yep,
of
it's
people use that.
confirmation bias.
People use that in classes in the moment a lot more. And once they actually take the class and like after and looking back, it's like, yeah, I hated that. Because I remember when
Hmm.
you were taking a first year class, you didn't think it was as bad. I
No, I
think.
definited did.
No. When I
I
talked to
hated
you,
every
when I
I
talked to
hated
you,
every second of it.
when I talked to you, you didn't seem as unenthused as you do now. Like you are way more forgiving about first seat than now. Uh,
Maybe, but I feel like that's revisionist history. I hated him.
all right, but yep, that's what's been going on. It's
Yeah.
I get to continue to be in school as my fantasy team continues to be atop one of the best teams in our league, yet 10th place out of 12.
Yeah.
I am the only team that's out of playoffs that is above half of the playoff teams in
Yeah.
points for every week. That is, I'm like closer to second place than I am to fifth. Like I think.
Yeah,
I'm just as close. I'm just as close.
you've had some bad luck with matchups for sure.
And I haven't
Um,
played Nick yet.
True.
I play Nick next week.
Hmm.
And guess who's on bye week? The Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah, the good news is though that you're actually only one game behind fifth place. Because
Okay.
fifth through ninth are all 4 and 6, and you're 3 and 7.
Counterpoint, I am 2 games behind. I get to play Nick. We are 3 games left, and I am 2 games behind.
Again, fair.
like, if I somehow win against Nick, then I make playoffs. No, I will celebrate more than I have for any Jaguar win this season, and I celebrated a lot for all the Minshew plays. Like, I was enthralled. I've never rooted for one player more in my life than Minshew.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it looks like all the pieces are coming together, right? He's the younger guy. He has a shitty O-line. He's the only, and a pocket passer can't survive in that, but a scrambling passer can definitely survive with a bad O-line way more than like an older guy who has never started all 16 games in a season due to injury or just performance, or Chip Kelly. Like I don't know. As you can tell, the caffeine's still hitting.
Yes.
It's very I'm very much just it's there's a lot of things that could happen between now and then.
All right.
I am fully ready for it.
Well, cool. So we'll try to do this next week.
Is your phone buzzing?
Yes, it is. I'm ignoring it. So anyway, we'll try to do this next week, but we'll see how it goes. I'd like to go back to doing this every week, but just like our schedules have been terrible.
It's mostly that school started, and it's this semester has been more work intensive than any other semester.
Yeah.
Honestly, PL is the only class I have left that I'm really worried about for college is programming languages. Like, and that's next semester. And then I'm kind of in just the home stretch.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed PL when I took it.
Percy.
Yeah, so you probably won't. But anyway. All right. Would you like to sign us off this time?
For sure. Jimmy Garoppolo. I am George Kittle, and I bid you all adieu.